All aboard! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, football fans of all ages, I am Beats Mike. You have now arrived at my train of thought. It's time to talk about week number 5. I can't believe we're already here. Let's not waste any more time and get to business. Let's start it off with a home game for the Niners. Well, in theory, it was a home game for the Rams, but because Niners fans show up and show out in Los Angeles for these Rams games, it was basically a home game for the Niners. Look at all this red you see here. Anyway, let's talk about this game, and let's talk about how Puka Nacua and Christian McCaffrey went bar for bar against each other and basically were a wash. They both scored receiving tutties. It was quite nice. And how Matt Stafford was good, but Mac Jones was up to the task, even though he took a horrible beating. I'm amazed Mac Jones got out of that game in one piece. He took a savage beating because the Niners offensive line suddenly doesn't exist, and the Rams did not stop, and it was relentless. Although the Rams somehow lost this game because for some reason they just couldn't find a way to finish the deal. Kyren Williams had him dead to rights, and he fumbled at the 1. Yes, he did score his obligatory tutty, but he fumbled at the 1. Down the stretch, not great. And then it looked like gotta have it 4th and 1 in the overtime after the Niners get their field goal and take the lead. And he didn't get it. And the away fans that were San Francisco fans reacted accordingly. And the Niners snatched a game with half a roster. The Rams with another loss that makes you think this had no business being a loss. Good win for the Niners. Kendrick Bourne played well too. This was, generally speaking, as gritty and as hard-fought of a win that the Niners could possibly get, with Fred Warner, Christian McCaffrey, and a bunch of backups. Well done, Niners. Keep it going if you can, and if you can stay healthy. Glory, glory, Tottenham Hotspur! For those who may not know, I've actually become a fan of the Tottenham Hotspur in the EPL and the UEFA and all that good stuff. I'm a fan of what they've done over the last couple of years. At least I've grown to be one. And I've kind of become attached to them in a way. I like what they're doing. A thing right now. They're second place in the EPL. Keep it going, Tottenham. And it happened in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this past weekend, were the Vikings and the Browns. And everyone showed up and showed out for this game. This was a interesting game in the sense of we got the rookie debut of Dylan Gabriel. Not Shooter Sanders, but Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel wasn't bad. He looked up to the task. He didn't make too many boneheaded mistakes. He really didn't make any, to be honest. Quinton Junkins continues to impress. He played really good ball for a lot of this game. However, it just seemed like, despite how good those two rookies were, and despite how productive David Njoku is, he scored a tutty in this game, and despite how good this offense was, it just didn't have enough to get over the top against a Minnesota team that learned from their mistakes from last week and played better and generally figured out and found a way to get the job done with their defense. And ultimately, it just never felt like Cleveland was going to win this game. So good on Minnesota for making sure that was the case and making sure that you won a game that you were supposed to. For the Browns, no shame in this loss. And maybe Dylan Gabriel wasn't the wrong pick after all. Good job, Minnesota. And I guess decent job, Cleveland. And now we got maybe the shocker of the day in the sense of, I don't think a lot of people thought that the Giants would actually lose this game. And as it turned out, not only did they lose, they lost by 2 scores. And Jackson Dart didn't look all that great. Rashid Shaheed may still be running, as far as I can tell. And turnovers, I think, was the letter of the day here, the word of the day here for New York. Turnovers. There were a lot of them. There were 5 of them. And you cannot do that if you're going to beat anybody, especially including, but not limited to, these New Orleans Saints. You cannot allow that. Jackson Dart looked like a rookie. The Giants were good with the whole fumbling thing. Dart had 3 turnovers on his own. Cam Scatterbo, who's really good, he had a fumble. It was just returned back to the crib, and it was at that point where the game flipped and the Giants weren't going to win said game. So it's as humiliating of a loss for the Giants as you can get, and that's saying something considering the Giants have had a bunch of these lately. And for New Orleans, good job. Good job, Saints. You're not going to go winless, And somehow your season will only be kind of memorable in your team history as opposed to memorable in NFL history. At least there's that. For the Giants, yikes. Again, yikes. And we see you on Thursday. Let's get to the Billy Madison Memorial part of this video. People blew games. It was kind of hilarious. We got to talk about it. We're going to start with the defending champions. Question. Why is Saquon Barkley only have 6 carries in this game? I need answers. Is it your offensive coordinator being really bad again? Because it seems like that answer is becoming a resounding yes. Is it because Denver's... Well, it's not because you had a 2-score lead over Denver, because that would be the perfect time to give Saquon the ball and just bleed the clock out. You, for some reason, didn't do that. And A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith got opportunities, I guess. Smith actually took advantage of his. A.J. Brown stopped running for one of his. It was weird. This is a very weird game for some reason that the Eagles lost. And they had no business losing it. This should have been a 3-score win, considering how the first half went. And somehow it was not. Yes, PS2 did a good job on A.J. Brown. Sure, there was a PI in there. But the only gripe that the Eagles fans seem to have is not with Saquon not getting his touches. It's the refereeing and the officiating. There was some really obvious calls, like the Zach Bond play. But yeah, that second to last play with Goddard, and it was explained, it might have been a little more contact than initially described. In any event, the Eagles probably were worthy enough to lose this game, and to be honest, I think the complaining about the officiating maybe is some sort of cope, because the Eagles' offense was so bad in the second half, and Denver just kind of Luigi'd their way to a win. So honestly, I'm losing no sleep over the Eagles taking that L, and I think the Eagles had it coming. Denver, you got a signature win you probably didn't deserve, but take the win and run. It'll probably make up for the 2 losses you had last week, the last couple of weeks, where you didn't deserve those losses. Not the Bengals loss. That was not the Bengals game. That was a free win. But the losses to the Colts and the Chargers that you had no business obtaining. Dolphins, question. What happened here? Chuba Hubbard does not play. So in theory, a really good, underrated running back isn't playing. In theory, your run defense should be up to the task against Rico Dowdle, who some of us may remember played okay in Dallas. They were not up to the task of stopping Rico Dowdle with a healthy defensive line. Zach Sealer, Kenneth Grant and company were no match for a very injured Carolina offensive line, and they gave up 236 yards total. 201 of those, and an angry run win, were given up to Rico Dowdle. Yikes. Even with all of that, and Bryce Young being Bryce Young, as in 2 inexplicably terrible turnovers. One was a fumble, and one was the first NO of the year by the Dolphins. These are the only 2 turnovers in this game. Despite all of that, Miami still had the lead late. Tua actually had a very good game, and though people won't believe it, he was the best Dolphin on the field. There are some that will actually agree with this, and I actually think he was the best Dolphin. Darren Waller continued to play well. Achane and Jalen Waddle also played well. The offense was humming, especially in the first half. They were up 17-0, and this should have been an easy win for Miami. And somehow, because of Dowdle in the run game, it wasn't. And on a 4th and 5, where Miami gets to stop, the game is over, they don't even do that. And Miami got minimal pass rush at all onto Bryce Young and somehow managed to botch this game horribly. And while Carolina basically won with one arm tied behind their back. This is a bad, bad loss. And if this is the end of Mike McDaniel, I would completely understand. Carolina stole this game. There's no other way to say this. And now we get to the portion of the video where you might want to hide the women and children, and I'm going to let the kids take it from here.
He's already dead.
Thank you very much. And we're going to go to MetLife and the Jets. Yeah, they're bad. They're really, really bad. History was made by the Jets this fine Sunday afternoon at MetLife as a bunch of Cowboy fans made their way to MetLife Stadium. They went 0-5 as we kind of expected. They were the first team through 5 games to not have a single turnover to their name. At least not defensive one. Justin Fields can account for some offensive ones, but we already know that. They also fumbled the ball quite a bit. Breece Hall did the honors this week. It was not great. Garrett Wilson did some Garrett Wilson things, but again, the damage was kind of done. This was 30-3 in the 4th quarter, and a lot of this game was garbage time. Do not get fooled by the final score being only 15. This was a much more severe beating than that score would indicate. The Jets are really bad, and it's on the board that they're going to go 0-17. Barbecue Sauce Gardner got absolutely cooked by George Pickens this week, as opposed to Darren Waller the week prior, and various other people making him look kind of bad the weeks prior to that. It has not been a great year for Sauce Gardner. And the Jets as a whole are looking hilariously bad and hilariously undisciplined, and Aaron Glenn's getting around of bodies to cut before the season ends. He already cut the dude who caught the fair catch from the 2-yard line in the Dolphins game. It's not looking great for Aaron Glenn and the Jets. Dallas, you're back to 500, and it's impressive. If you can keep it together without CeeDee Lamb and play some sort of defense against competent teams, Dallas has got a fighting chance at this thing. Baltimore, we got a problem. And it was Houston who caused it, at least this time. CJ Stroud looked like rookie Stroud. And that's not terrible, except for the fact that the Ravens defense seems to no longer exist. And I get it in the sense of the physical sense, where Matabuke's out, and Marlon Humphrey's out, and Wiggins is out, and Roquan Smith is out. I get it. That's your four best defensive players. Understood, they're all out. And it showed, as basically it was fish in a barrel for Stroud and the Texans as they lit up the Ravens hilariously. It was kind of wild. Obviously the Texan offense, the Texan defense did its part as well, as they were able to make Cooper Rush's day look miserable. And this is an easy win for a Texans team that kind of sort of needed it, and are all of a sudden kind of getting back on track, even though they faced two relatively bad teams. Let's face it, the Ravens are looking like a bad team right now. So much so that they've already traded Odafe Oweh to the Chargers, and they may regret that trade, because if Harbaugh can turn Odafe Oweh into the pass rusher of the future that he desperately needs, that may be a really terrible decision for the Ravens. And that's a team that doesn't normally make terrible decisions. Anyway, Houston, good job getting back to 2-3. And for Baltimore, being 1-4, that was not on anyone's bingo card. This game should not have been Super Bowl for children. I think they should have blacked this game out in Las Vegas, to be honest. What happened in Indianapolis was a bludgeoning. It was a beating. It was something that you should probably equate to a Mike Myers movie. It was not great. It was a very bad, awful performance by the Raiders. Geno Smith, yikes. 3 NOs, and it was just a terrible day all around for all things Raider. The Colts basically did whatever they wanted to. It feels like, even though the score was like 40-6, it feels like that wasn't even close enough. Like this could have been far worse than what it actually was. Indianapolis kind of turned off the gas at some point in the third quarter or fourth quarter, somewhere along those lines. It felt like Indianapolis didn't have to do but too much at all. Daniel Jones was respectable, was solid, did his thing. Jonathan Taylor did his thing. This was a relatively easy win for Indianapolis. Anthony Richardson even played and got an angry run submission in there. Like, this was a bludgeoning by the Colts, and as free of a win as Indianapolis got since the game week 1 against Miami. We try not to talk about that as Dolphin fans. But anyway, it happens. Colts take a free win. Speaking of games that didn't seem as close as the final score would indicate, Lions-Bengals, this game didn't feel like that either, despite the Lions' injuries in their secondary. Terrion Arnold being out for a considerable amount of time, that might be bad. Then Brian Branch was hurt at different points in this game, also not great. The Lions' offense did like what most competent offense should do against the Bengals, which is basically what they wanted to. Sonic and Knuckles both scored. Knuckles caught a really spectacular receiving touchdown. Sonic actually threw a touchdown pass. It was quite wild. Sam Laporta scored. All these things are good for my fantasy team. I have all 3 of those guys. They all did their thing. They all dominated. And the Bengals defense put up little resistance. The only Bengal really that put up a fight in this game was Jamar Chase, who had 2 really good touchdowns in the fourth quarter of this game. Somehow this got to within 2 scores. It never felt like it, but somehow this got there. And ultimately, the Lions would salted away after recovering onside kicks or whatever. But this was not as close as the final score would indicate. So yet again, it's another win by a Detroit team over an Ohio team. That does seem quite the norm, like the Tigers did to the Guardians. We move now to another LA team. This time it's the Commanders facing the Chargers, and the Chargers offensive line is looking really, really bad. the injuries have really gotten to this line. Obviously, not having 3 starters and a 4th starter, I think, got hurt in this game. It's looking ugly for those protecting Justin Herbert, and it showed. Because after the Chargers jumped on the Commanders, it didn't get much better for Los Angeles as Jaden Daniels came back and the offense suddenly looked like it was proficient and not being super reckless with it. And the defense looked like they were composed against the Chargers after an early lead that the Chargers jumped out to. Washington effectively dominated the last 3 quarters of this game, and this game was never really in question pretty much once we got to the 4th. A good win for the Commanders, who kind of needed the road win to kind of recover from whatever that was against Atlanta, where their defense got cooked. And the Chargers are looking like they're in a little bit of trouble considering that offensive line is in shambles. They've lost 2 straight against the NFC East, and it has not been a pretty 2 straight losses. Cardinals, explain yourselves. This would be another one of those you blew it type losses. Explain yourselves. You had 3 of the most embarrassing plays we're going to see this NFL season. The Deshaun Jackson Memorial at the 1-yard line, that was not great. The Eno that somehow turned into a Titans touchdown, also not great. The snap that hit Kyler Murray in the face, which is kind of weird. And it's not fair to him considering he's so small. But it happened, and it was kind of humiliating for Murray. It's just an awful, awful way to do all these things. This should have been an easy 3 or 4 score win, and it was looking like that after the first quarter, and somehow we never got there. I don't know why we never got there, Cardinals. Titans actually shown some resilience and showed some fight. Cam Ward, despite the comments he made last week, actually played relatively well, especially down the stretch. And the gotta have it drive. He had his first big boy drive in the NFL. He proved himself. And then got Tennessee into a position for a field goal and made it happen. Props to the Titans for stealing this game. And for the Cardinals, this is your 3rd straight loss with a field goal that decided it at the horn. You have learned nothing over the last 3 weeks. This should not have been a loss. If you missed the playoffs, you know why. You've been warned. So we might have had a Game of the Year contender in Seattle between Tampa and the Seahawks. First and foremost, in terms of the fashion stuff, it's a fly version and easily the best uniform combination we've seen all year. Look at these uniforms right here. I am a fan of a good amount of the throwbacks in the game, and since both these teams decided to celebrate their 50th anniversaries and ironically play each other, I love that they went with this combo with the creamsicles and the throwback 1990s blue Seattle, that kind of ocean blue type of flow that I think Seattle's going for with their uniforms of the 1990s. But we got to talk about the game itself, and it lived up to the hype between Baker and Sam Darnold and their respective teams. Both the main receivers in this game were as advertised. Emeka Egbuka, Jackson Smith, and Jigba both have absolutely cooked. The former is already looking like the offensive rookie of the year. He has balled out in his first 5 games as a pro. He's been really, really good. JSN cooked as well. These 2 teams went back and forth for a lot of this game. Tampa came out swinging early. Seattle came back swinging later. And touchdowns galore. Rashad White did his thing. It was a really... Well, he only had 41 yards, but he did score, though. He did score twice. That's always a good thing. Kenneth Walker doubled him in yards, but no scores. I think you'll take White's game over Walker's in this situation. But this is about the quarterbacks and the 2 main receivers that played. They were all slinging it. And to get to the end of this game, where it looked like Seattle had this on lock after the Tony Horton touchdown, and I love that Kevin Harlan was on the call for this. With 4 minutes to go, Seattle is up by 7. Just get stops and you're good to go, or a stop and you're good to go, and you'll win this game. You're 4-1 as opposed to Tampa being 4-1. But what have you learned about Tampa this year? In all their wins, they always steal them at the very end, and that's effectively what happened here. Tampa went down the field with no problems. They took half the clock left and said, all right, tie game bet. Now you're playing in Tampa Bay's wheelhouse, where the Bucs are very capable of stealing your game and stealing your joy at the very end of it. And this time it was the defense that contributed to the stealing. Remember when I kept saying that Sam Darnold was probably the reason why Seattle wasn't 4-0 going into this game because of that fumble against the Niners. Well, he might be the reason why they're going to be 3-2 after this game because of the NO he threw to Levante David. And it was not a great pass, and David was all over it. He read Darnold's eyes, and then Tampa Bay just got in the field goal range and bagged it. McLaughlin, yet again, wins the game for Tampa at the horn. Tampa Bay swipes a win they had no business getting. Seattle loses a game they probably shouldn't have. And yet again, on this wild Sunday, another comeback at the very end to steal victory from the jaws of defeat. This time it's Tampa Bay winning a game that may come in handy if these two teams are fighting for the wild card and the Bucs aren't fighting for the NFC South, or they hadn't already won the NFC South. Seattle, you really could be 5-0. Unfortunately, 2 mistakes prevented it. Let's get to the Sunday night game. And I will say this for Buffalo. Their fans and the team understood the assignment of what a wideout should be. The rivalry's uniforms are fairly clean. The Dolphins did theirs last week. It's clean. The Bills ones are also fairly clean. They did really well here. And in this case for Buffalo, they widened out their stadium. And the noise was already there. That's a prerequisite. But the crowd participation was top-notch here. They're very impressive. Unfortunately, the team wasn't. They were sloppy from the word go. They were not efficient. They were not effective. They made a lot of mistakes, especially with penalties. There were a lot of penalties by the Bills. A lot of false starts, a lot of holdings, some defensive penalties sprinkled in there. It was a very sloppy and efficient game. Josh Allen wasn't the Josh Allen that we've expected him to be. It was just not very good at all from Buffalo. Yet their defense kept New England mostly away from the scoreboard. And it was only 6-3 New England at a half. Buffalo did, however, make it happen in the second half. Josh Allen did get a touchdown pass, but New England countered quickly with 2 tutties. Josh Allen did throw 2 NOs, which also helped in this situation. And he, like I said, wasn't very efficient at all on Sunday. Drake May, however, was. New England didn't make mistakes. Remember what I keep saying about the Patriots. When they don't make mistakes, they're generally a good team. When they do, you see the Steeler game. Ultimately, Stephon Diggs got his revenge. He played tremendous. He was probably the best player on the field, to be honest. And Buffalo just couldn't match and never really did enough to match what the Patriots were doing. New England was the better team on Sunday night. Drake May made the plays that you would normally expect Josh Allen to make, and some of them with Diggs. And it just ultimately, New England swiped the game at the very end, and it felt like inevitable once the Patriots got the ball back last. And that was it. The game is over. New England gets their signature win, and their biggest win, I would say, since probably Tom Brady played. A statement win by the Patriots, a surprising loss by the Bills because they've been incredibly efficient over the last few years. And with this loss, this means that the 1972 Dolphins can celebrate. The current Dolphins are bad, but this team was perfect, and they can sip champagne once again for another year. I know 31 other fan bases are a little upset by this. I do not care. And a lot of other Dolphin fans agree with me. We'll get to the Monday night game. And on this Monday night with the Chiefs and Jaguars, another team trying to beat a heavyweight over the last few years to kind of gain their legitimacy. In the case of Jacksonville, their defense was already legit. But they did give up a 98-yard drive after a Lawrence fumble, which is not great because Lawrence fumbled at the goal line. Kansas City got to the goal line later on in this game, and unfortunately for them, it was Devin Lloyd who returned the favor and went coast to coast, returning the ball to the crib. That's also not great. Don't worry, there were normal touchdowns in this game as well. Pat Mahomes ran one in, Trevor Lawrence ran 2 in. I'll get to the second one later. And he also threw one, Lawrence did. But this was a really good battle between these two teams. Kansas City did well to stop Jacksonville's run game, which had been really good over the last few weeks. Etienne was not the normal Travis Etienne we kind of expected him to be. He simply wasn't. But Jacksonville held firm and held serve. They kept it close with Kansas City. They kept things really efficient, the Jaguars did. And then we got to the very end, where Kansas City made their move. They got the go-ahead score. And I think at this point, we were all thinking, okay, Kansas City's going to salt this down. Jacksonville, you put up a good fight. and that'll be the end of it. It wasn't, though. Jacksonville went right back down the field, and they were determined to do this all in under 2 minutes. They made it happen in 7 plays, and boom. Trevor Lawrence bumbles and stumbles. He did not fumble this time. He, however, dove into the end zone, as you see, and that was actually the game. This game probably could have gone to overtime, though. Had it not been for a holding on the ensuing kickoff, Kansas City might have been in field goal range for Harrison Butker. Instead, there was that holding. It was called. Kansas City never got close to field goal range, and that was the game. Good job for Jacksonville. A statement win. And in the case of the Jaguars, it seems like a Tony Khan level flow to get this dub and follow the script as planned. There are a lot of AEW people. We saw the scheme, Tony Khan. We saw the scheme. Anyway, Jacksonville's 4-1. Their defense is playing really well. Trevor Lawrence had to have it, and he got it. And sometimes it's all you need is for things to work out according to plan. As for Kansas City, I think the Chiefs are going to be fine. I think we all think this, that the Chiefs are going to be fine. It's just a matter of, can they get it together according to how they planned it, and what happens when Rashee Rice gets back. Tyquan Thornton's actually been a pretty solid addition for them, and this receiving core actually might be secretly dangerous when Rice returns, to have Thornton and Xavier Worthy with him. So you got some home run speed to go with the overall good playmaking by Rice. Can the Chiefs get the run game going as well? Because Pacheco did not have that great of a night. Kareem Hunt did. Hunt scored twice. Kansas City should again be fine, especially with the AFC West not looking all that insurmountable, to be honest. And this week did not go great for me. A lot of games were blown, and a lot of those blown games were by teams that I picked. I went 6-8 this week, and my overall record is 46-31-1. Yeah, that one's still not great, but I guess we're going to live with it. Coming up later today, Power Rankings. There will be a new number 1 guaranteed. There will be a new number 32 guaranteed. What happens with the other 30 teams? Where am I going to slot them? And the other question is simple. Is Baltimore a zombie tier team? They might have to be after their performances this year. And as I'm going to close this video out, there is something that I've said for years, and I think a lot of you understand this in full. The Jets suck. And that will be the first stop of my next train of thought.